Hey everybody, so this right here is the newest TIG welder from Yeswelder. It's a TIG-225P, and we're going to take it for a rip today. See what she's got. Or hell, maybe they made this for people that don't have legs. I don't know. So this welder has a bunch of pretty key improvements compared to the lift TIG that comes on like the multi-process MIG welders that have the lift TIG. It has a couple little drawbacks too, so we're gonna get into all of that stuff. I'm gonna just go ahead and say the best thing about this welder is they finally put an on-demand fan in one of their machines, so you don't have to listen to the fan constantly when the machine's on. It just kicks on when you start welding, and it kicks off when it cools down. It's pretty awesome. So this welder does come with foot pedal, but I was kind of disappointed to see it's just an on-off pedal, so you don't get the variable voltage control, or sorry, amperage. But I think the way that they built the actual settings on this machine, it's kind of like a step in between. So it's a step up from lift TIG, but for people that maybe aren't quite ready for a foot pedal. So this thing has like a lot of ramp up, ramp down. So it has a lot of those settings built right into it. To me, I would just prefer to let off the pedal when I'm too hot or step on it when I'm too cold. But as far as like tapering down at the end of your weld instead of just hard stopping like on the lift TIG, at least with this one, you can set a down slope, a time. You can set the low amps, so maybe you're at 100 amps for peak welding and then 40 for your down slope. And so it tapers it off. So it also has pre-flow, post-flow. It has the same thing on the up slope. So in addition to that, you can just run this as a lift TIG. It also has pulse, which is kind of cool because then you can set a minimum and a maximum. It's kind of hard to weld with pulse if you've never done it. It's just, TIG's all about timing, and it's really all about timing with pulse. Okay guys, so what comes in the box? You do get 2 torches. This is the little miniature cold spot TIG. This is your standard one. One of the cool things about it is they have an on-off switch right on it, and that is just for starting and stopping your weld. I have not checked to see how that operates on the 4T, 2T, but you don't have to use this. If you want to, you can use this little foot pedal and plug it in at the same spot instead, because the foot pedal and the torch, they have the same type of plug, so you get to choose which one you want. So then that brings me to the foot pedal. This is kind of what I thought was a shortcoming. I really wish that this would have came with a variable voltage pedal. This is literally just an on-off. That's it. Just whoops, forgot that we're turned on. It's literally just a click for on or off, and that's it. So you can't dial back your voltages, but the flip side to that is you get the ramp up and the ramp down settings on here to kind of compensate for that. In addition to that, it does come with the 220 to 110 plug. This is kind of backwards from how the other welders come. The other ones come with this plug on it and then an adapter to the 220, so I'm not sure why they do it one way sometimes and the other way another time, but it is a dual voltage machine. And then it also comes with your pretty basic standard stick welding lead. The ground cable is pretty much the same ground cable that comes on all their welders. And then you do get a small assortment of consumables for each of the torches. There you can really see the difference in the size on that mini torch. Now on this, the biggest tungsten it takes is 1/8. Okay guys, so I'm going to turn this on. The fan will kick on for a second, but then it'll shut back off. So at first glance, this might look intimidating for some people because there's so many settings and you're like, oh my god, what does all this stuff do? But it's really simple. This button controls your mode. You've got 5 modes, so it does come with a stick welding lead, and then there's 4 TIG modes. There's lift TIG, which is like really basic. There's high frequency, which is where you don't have to actually touch down or scratch start. Then there's pulse, which I explained earlier. It's the high and the low. And then there's cold spot, and for that, that's what that little miniature torch was for. I don't have tungsten small enough for that, so we're not gonna, oops, kick the camera. So we're not gonna get into that. This button is your 2-touch and 4-touch. So if you put it on 4-touch, you can just tap the button and it'll just keep welding until you tap it again. I don't like that. I like to just hold it, so I leave it on 2-touch. And so that pretty much leaves the knob and this button. So this button, depending on what mode you're in, you're gonna get different options available. So this high frequency, this is kind of your base mode, and you're gonna have a lot available. So this right here is your amperage. So let's say we wanna set it to like 125. I believe it's gonna skip over that one because that's the low amperage for pulse. So now it's gonna go slope down, and this is like a time. So you can shut it off, or you can have it last, let's see how long, all the way up to 10 seconds. I think it comes stock at 1. We'll just put it on 1.5 seconds. And then this next one says stop amps. So that's like what it's tapering down to. So it's gonna be at 125, and over that 1.5 seconds, it's gonna taper down to whatever you set the stop amps at. So for this example, we'll just put it at 50. So then the next light is your post flow. So this is just set on 5 seconds of post flow. If you're doing something sensitive like stainless or something like that, you want plenty of post flow, but just for what I'm doing, that is plenty. So that's where you kind of get to the end and it comes back over here. So now you got pre-gas. I don't really like a lot of pre-gas, but you can go anywhere from 0.1 to 3 seconds. Then you have your starting amps, which this is kind of the same as the stopping amps. So it's going to start low wherever you set it, and it's going to slowly taper up to your 125 that we set it at. So in this example, it's a 1 second. You can go anywhere from off, probably to 10 seconds, just like the other one. So then we're back to amps, and that's it. So you'll notice that all these didn't light up. The duty cycle, the frequency, which all that stuff is to do with the pulse. And then these are the cold welding time and cold spot time, which if we put it on cold spot, that's how that works. I really haven't played with that yet, so I can't speak too much on that. So I've noticed you can also click this button, but I haven't figured out if it does anything yet. Let's go ahead and jump down into pulse. And you see when you change the mode, it kind of lights up the ones that are available. So on cold spot, that's what's available. On stick, that's what's available. On lift TIG, that's what's available. High frequency and pulse. So into this is pretty much the same as before, but you've got a high and a low. So it's going to alternate between, right now it's currently on 225, and then the background voltage, let's just say we're going for some thick stuff here. So it's going to alternate between 225, 150, 225, 150. So then you still got your same downslope, stop amps when you end, post flow, but now you've got duty cycle, a max of 90 and a minimum of 10. And what this does is it controls how long each of your high and your low are set. So if you put it on 50, they're going to be equal, like 1 second high, 1 second low. You've also got your frequency, which it's currently set at 1.9. It can go between 0.1 and apparently a lot. That is just the speed, or like how many times a minute that it switches between the high and low. But that's what it is. And then we're back to the pre-flow start amps. So on pulse, the upslope is actually turned off. So that's pretty much that. So moving on to the cold spot, you pretty much got your amps, cold welding time, and that's in milliseconds. Cold spot time off. I really don't know what those equate to. And then you have post flow and pre-flow, and that's it for that setting. So that's pretty much the gist of the settings. In no way is this video supposed to be like a how to TIG weld. I just want to show you the machine and what it's going to do. I'm not good enough to be a teacher for TIG welding, but if you do want to see the best how to TIG weld video on the internet, go to Mike Festiva. He has a YouTube channel. He has a video called How to TIG Weld in 20 Minutes. It has maybe 1 million views by now, and it is just a fantastic video that gives you all the little how exactly to grind your tungsten and at what angle and how to hold the torch. It just goes over all that stuff, but in a condensed package. Mike's a really cool dude. He's one of my friends, so highly suggest you go check out his channel for a lot of how-to stuff on welding. Anyway, let's get going. Alright, so as usual, we're getting ready to weld. I'm going to use scrap metal because that's what I got. So I've got 4 different types of metal we're going to weld here. So we're going to start with this, where this is just an old piece of exhaust tube, and I cut some slits in it. This is about 0.45 wall thickness, so we're going to run it on about 45 amps. Then we're going to step up to this, which it's about 0.80 thickness. This is just some 3/16 scrap that I have laying around, so we'll probably just run this on 180 amps. And then lastly, I've got, this is something I cut some tabs out of when I was out of plate, and when I did the last welder video, I used this as a bunch of test runs on the back, but it's 1/4 inch thick. But I do have this one good side, so we'll just run a couple. I'm going to turn it all the way up to 225, and we're just going to see how it runs on full bore. Alright guys, I set the machine up on 80 amps, and I think I did 45 for the upslope and downslope. Let's just see how this goes. big old hole in it. Definitely dipped the tungsten on that one. So changing this out is pretty easy. You just loosen the cap. Got my tungsten all reground up. Gotta find the hole, Jimmy. Hey, that cup's warm too. Alright, let's hit this 1/4 inch stuff. Definitely a little bit out of practice. Let's run another one right next to it. Oops, I stuck her on there. So we're gonna do a T-joint here. Sometimes you gotta play with your stick out because maybe if you have it out to there normally, when you try to do a corner piece, sometimes your cup will stop you from getting in there so far, especially if you're using like a big gas lens. So you just have to be mindful that this is also a good place to learn how to do the cup walking, but again, you see like the tungsten's actually too close to it, and once there's a puddle there, it would just be submerged. So for this small of a cup, I actually have to shorten it a good bit. So this is where it gets interesting because your torch angle, I think I might actually try walking the cup a little bit. I think I got my distance pretty good for it. Wow, for not having done that in about 6 months, I can't say I'm mad at that. Okay, so I definitely got to work on my settings a little bit. I was doing okay on this, but then I kept having some blowouts, as you can see, but I'm really not used to going around 2. But again, this isn't about my skills, it's about the welder itself. So on this one, I kind of had the same problem. That was just a major blow through. Some of those are alright, some not so much. This is 3/16. Did a little bit of walking the cup. There's a little bit of undercut on the upper toe. Definitely looks pretty good otherwise. And then this is the 1/4 inch stuff. I did a couple different techniques. This one I just did lay wire instead of dipping. It's probably the cleanest one on here. So overall, I didn't have any issues with the welder itself. It's more or less my ability to set it up properly. And it's also weird getting used to just having this be on and off. I kept trying to lift off to like, you know, lower my amps a little bit, and then it would just cut my arc off because I'm just not used to it. Alright guys, so I just got done using this thing, and while it's fresh in my head, I just want to rattle off a couple pros and cons of this thing. So by far, my favorite feature of this welder is that on-demand fan. Even when the fan is on, it's quieter than the other Yeswelders, but the fact that it shuts off in between welds, that's a freaking game changer, especially when you make videos like I do, because I can't stand listening to them welders in the background. It ruins my audio. So that's the best thing about this welder. Probably the worst thing about this welder is the fact that they made a specific TIG welder and didn't include AC. And out of all their TIG welders, there's only one that has AC, and I don't understand why, because that's like literally the people that are going out and buying TIG welders, they want AC because they want to TIG aluminum. To me, they're kind of just missing the boat on that one. Maybe the cost of doing that is far greater than what I know, and they're trying to keep the price at a certain place. Whatever their reason is, I can't imagine why they leave that out. So yes, welder, if you're listening, start putting AC on some of your TIG welders. The next thing I do like is all the different settings you get. You get the pre and post flow, the upslope, downslope, the pulse, even that cold spot, which I haven't messed with yet. You do get a lot of value. There's definitely a bunch of stuff on here to tinker with, and it is kind of nice. And I feel like this is supposed to bridge the gap. It's supposed to bridge the gap between super beginners and like really advanced welders that have a billion settings and people operating them that have all the skills to go with it. It's like, okay, they give you some of those controls, but instead of giving it to you through your foot by letting off the pedal, because you can just as easily do this downslope just by tapering off the pedal when you're done welding. Or hell, maybe they made this for people that don't have legs. I don't know. Whatever the case is, you know, it's something different. They tried it. It definitely works. It's just not my favorite thing. So now for the thing I don't care about so much, it's this pedal. It's not that the pedal has anything wrong with it, I'm just not used to on and off. I kept finding myself trying to lift up off of this when my pedal was too hot, and then it just shuts my arc off because I'm used to the normal pedal or no pedal with the lift TIG. So it's definitely a little bit frustrating to get used to, but you don't have to use it. I could have just as easily used the switch on here. So again, if you want to check this out, I do have a discount code. I'll put it up on the screen right here. You'll save 10%. It helps me out a little bit. I get a little bit of commission off of it. I also have videos about the 205DS, I have a video about the 250 Pro, and I have a video about the Yeswelder plasma cutter. I'll link all those at the end of the video if you want to check some of those out. Personally, my favorite so far is the 250 Pro. That is a great friggin' machine. Anyways, thanks for checking out the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.